On today's episode, you'll hear how to go beyond opens and clicks to get to what really matters in your reporting. This is the Be a Marketer podcast.
Be a Marketer.
My name is Dave Charest, Director of Small Business Success at Constant Contact, and I help small business owners like you make sense of online marketing. And on this podcast, we'll explore what it really takes to market your business, even if marketing's not your thing. No jargon, no hype, just real stories to inspire you and practical advice you can act on. So remember, friend, you can be a marketer. And at Constant Contact, we're here to help. Well, hello, friend, and thanks for joining us for another episode of the Be a Marketer podcast. This is the fifth in our series of conversations with Constant Contact community coaches. But before we get to our topic today and describe who those people are, I've got the one and only Kelsey Carter. Hi, Kelsey.
Hi, Dave Charest. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here as always. So just a refresher for everyone playing along at home. Community coaches, they are distinguished members and leaders in the Constant Contact community who really, they go above and beyond, right? They showcase their expertise, they engage with others, and offer guidance to the small businesses in our online community. Now, we've promised you 6 of these episodes with our coaches. So far, we've talked about setting goals with Tracy Lee Davis of Zing Pop Social Media. We've talked email design with Aaron Wesley Means of Activate Business Solutions. We've also talked about growing your list with Melanie Deal of Melanie & Co. Creating multi-channel campaigns with, again, Aaron Wesley Means. And today, we're going to be talking about reporting with our guest, who Kelsey will share with you in a moment. And then we're going to be closing it off with a conversation around segmentation. So Kelsey, you're on. Who's joining us today?
I thought you'd never ask. So today we have Lindsay Higgins. She's the owner of L2L Creative Group, which is based in Boston, Massachusetts. So Lindsay helps businesses set up their email marketing and Constant Contact from start to finish. And she also offers ongoing account management.
A little bit of trivia for you, Kelsey. Lindsay was a former marketing communications consultant at Constant Contact. So she spent her days on the phones with Constant Contact customers, advising them on their marketing efforts. She, of course, went off on her own. She started an agency and became a Constant Contact certified partner. And, big round of applause here, in 2024, she celebrated her 10th year in business. Yay! Congratulations, Lindsay. So we connected, as I mentioned, to talk about reporting today. But first, let's go to Lindsay as she shares her experience as a Constant Contact certified partner.
Being a certified partner has been amazing because my agency is basically backed by Constant Contact and endorsed, and we can really shine through and prove our expertise. Like, we know this product in and out. We can help you from beginning to end. And I've had some amazing opportunities being a certified partner with Constant Contact. I've spoken at Microsoft. I've spoken at the Boston Business Journal. I've done workshops online and all over the country. So for national events, and I'm very fortunate for that. But yeah, it's been quite the journey.
What has the experience been like as a Constant Contact community coach?
I love being a coach because it's real time. Like, you're answering questions with the Constant Contact customer base if they get stuck on something, and you kind of see what people are struggling with. We have a lot of management clients, and a lot of them hand it off to us to take care of. So it's interesting to see what people are like, may have an issue with, or like don't understand. So we can properly address those issues with them and address any concerns or just help them live. So it's been a great feature. And I recommend it to all customers that use Constant Contact to leverage that Constant Contact community.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you being in there to help out and sharing your expertise with folks in there. Lindsay, so we're here to talk about really kind of reporting and like what happens after you send that email. People are wondering, okay, is this working? What do I need to do? What is this going to do for us? All of that kind of stuff. And so I guess my question to you is, once people send that email, what are they looking at? Well, how do they know it's working?
Right. A great question. So yeah, it's like once you send out an email, how do you know if it's doing what you want it to do? So I think it goes back to, why did you send the email? What was the email about? So let's say you are promoting an event, right? And let's say the event has an RSVP button inside. So essentially your goal for that email was you want to collect RSVPs and increase attendance to your event and get registrations. So once your email goes out, okay, well, how many registrations did you get from that email? I think that that's a really important component to look at, like the click rate in that sense. And then let's say on the back end, if you're using Constant Contact for registrations, you'll be able to see exactly how many people did register to that event that you're holding. So you can kind of analyze, for example, let's say your click rate is really strong, but you didn't have a lot of registrations for your event. So that would mean to me, look from an outsider looking in, that, okay, maybe there was an issue with the registration form, or maybe there was some confusion about how to register, something along those lines. But it should have a good indication for a high click rate if you're looking to drive action and have somebody click a button to do something. Let's say that you're hoping to increase phone calls, then is your phone ringing? Is your company line ringing? Is your cell phone ringing? Just measuring on live in real time in the day to day and in the back end is really important. For example, what does your open rate look like? So if your open rate is pretty low, let's say it's 10%, I'm just throwing that number out there, then maybe there was an issue with your subject line. It wasn't, did you have a subject line? What did it say? Insert subject line here, So I have seen that happen. There's so many different methods of reviewing if your email actually worked. But I think it goes back to, okay, what was the initial goal of your email? And then kind of build from that to be able to review all the metrics surrounding it.
Yeah. So I love that you started there, because I think this is often one of the things, and I think social media is kind of a big proponent here in terms of this mentality, right? But it all becomes about like the click and like the engagement piece. And not that those things aren't important or like leading indicators in many ways, but oftentimes it clouds us to forget about the things that are actually important, which is, to your point, why is the reason that you were sending this email? What is the thing that you want people to do? What is the goal? Because that's ultimately what you want to get to. Then it becomes like, okay, if you work your way back, these things like opens, these things like clicks, these things lead to that thing. But at the end of the day, if people open and click and they don't do that thing that you want them to do, well, do you count as a success, right? Probably not, because you're not actually putting money in the bank, so to speak. Well, so let's talk about a couple of things here, just kind of going through the lens of this, right? Where you've got opens and clicks. So obviously that's something that you can see on the back end, right? You can see that in the Constant Contact dashboard. I think when we're looking at opens and clicks right now, and I'm going to say this kind of across all industries, we're probably at a 33% is like the average open rate. And then for a click rate, we're at like a 2%. So I think these are good in terms of making sure, like, giving you a sense of like how things are doing. I think it's obviously more important to make sure that you're focusing on your own numbers and really looking to improve those. And I would actually say to folks too listening, if you haven't done this already, it's probably a good idea to go into your Constant Contact account and add your industry. Because if you do that, then what's going to happen is you'll start to see numbers reflective of your industry in your reporting. So you can start to get a gauge again, like how you're doing compared to others in your specific industry. And I think that's really important again, but really focus on those specific numbers of your own and improving those, I think is more important than anything else. So, you mentioned a few things. You start to look at all of these things and they start to help you kind of dissect a bit or diagnose where something might be going wrong. And so, of course, the first stage in all of this is getting somebody to having your goal. You send the email out, but the first thing that people need to do is see it and open it, right? So what should people think about just in terms of like getting more opens?
Yeah. So let's say you send out an email and you have, your open rate is good. It's above industry average, but you want better, right? So in that situation, I would say make a copy of the email that you sent out, revise the subject line, do something totally different, and then resend that same email to the people that did not open it before. You can kind of see, you can kind of gauge like, okay, which subject line works better. You can do the split testing as well. There is the A and B testing within the platform. So that kind of gives you a good idea of what subject line performs better. And I think there's never a right or wrong answer. There's always going to be principles to apply to get the best result, but there's never going to be like the perfect subject line. There's never going to be the perfect day or time to send, in my opinion. I mean, I know there's studies and all of that, but if you're seeing that 2 o'clock on Monday is working for you, then go for that. Try a different time the next time and just see, trial and error. It's all about maybe you sent it on a Friday at 4 p.m. right before a holiday weekend. Maybe that affected in what your result was. So it's all about just seeing, okay, what did this garner as a result? And then what are you doing another test? What did that? And then kind of comparing the two. And then you start to kind of feel it out and see what works and what doesn't for your business.
Yeah, I think that's just a great mentality across the board to think about just testing. I think that's the big thing with marketing. Like, we're going to give you ideas or places to start and things to try, but every business, every audience is a little bit different. And you want to kind of lean into trying those things, adopting that mindset to figure out what works best for you. You mentioned A/B testing, of course, with subject lines, which is a great way to start to figure out. And basically what that means is that you can say, all right, I'm going to send a certain amount of emails to one group of people with this subject line. I'm going to send another amount with this subject line. And then whichever one ends up being the one that most people open, that's the one you're going to send to the rest of your list, right? Which I think is really cool. The other thing you mentioned is really that idea of like sending to people who didn't open was something different too. And I just want to mention for folks too, that a simple way to do this in your workflow with Constant Contact too is use the resend to non-openers feature. And so what you can do is actually go in there, and as you're scheduling that first send, you can then say, okay, now in a few days' time, I'm going to reschedule this for people that didn't open it. And then you can actually update the subject line in there. And then you're just doing that at one time. So you don't have to do that again to test that out. I think that's cool as well. And a good time saver there for folks as well. So when we start thinking about, okay, now we got people to open the email, a lot of times, your success with email is going to be based on getting people to do something. You want to get some type of action. And sometimes that can be, as we mentioned, things that are maybe outside of the dashboard, or maybe it's even just replying to you or something like that. But it's also really looking at, sometimes we want to get people clicking. We got to get people to our website. We want to get people to the form. We want to get people to what it is that we want them to do. And so what about when we start thinking about, what are some ways we can start thinking about, or tips for people to get better click-throughs and once people actually get inside that email?
So that's a great question. And funny you asked, because I was just reviewing some reporting for a women's club that I manage, and I highlight events coming up in the area that we're doing. And I actually noticed that in the email that I sent out, I do have a mix of buttons and underlined links to take action, to register, RSVP, whatever it may be. And I actually noticed there was a lot of clicks on the actual underlined words versus the button, which I thought was really interesting. So it's like, okay, I'll take that into account for next time. Like, okay, maybe just do I underline more things and see if that's garnering a better result.
I like that idea of giving people, let's say, I'm a big fan of, look, I want somebody to take an action, so I'm going to have an email focused on someone taking whatever that one action it is. But within that email, I can give them multiple opportunities to take the same action versus introducing new actions, right? And so your tip here about like thinking about using your underlined text, using a button as well, it gives people kind of the option as they're reading the email of knowing like, oh, like this is where I'm ready to take that action, or this is where I'm going to do that. And so it gives people multiple opportunities to take the same action within an email, which I think is something cool to check through and test out. I think the other thing to mention, so again, we mentioned this briefly, like going beyond, and we kind of started there, is going beyond the opens and clicks and looking to the conversion rates, like what are the things that you wanted people to do? And I just wanted to mention here that, again, sometimes those metrics are outside your dashboard. And so Lindsay, you mentioned that idea if you wanted somebody to call you, well, like how many people called. So like, what do you recommend people do to like start to track those things that might not really exist inside the Constant Contact dashboard, for example, but the things that they have to take into account to actually see how successful they were?
Yeah. So let's say just the phone call example. Let's say in that email, you're promoting a specific product or service, and you start to notice, okay, that month after you sent out that email, you're getting inquiries from your website forms, you're getting emails, you're getting phone calls regarding that specific service. I mean, if you never promoted it before, then you kind of can attribute, okay, well, how do people know about this, right? It could be people on your email list spreading the word and telling their friends, family, or other people in the industry about this product or service that you're featuring or that you featured in this email. So I think that you can kind of attribute not directly in pinpointing it, but you can kind of indirectly correlate the cause and effect of that specific campaign and the result that it garnered.
So I want to just recap for some folks listening to us here today. A couple of things before I do that, though. Check out that reporting dashboard within your Constant Contact account. There's really interesting things that you can do to just look at trends over emails that you've sent over time. Also, just comparing one email to another just to see what the differences are and the types of results you got from those. But to kind of recap what we've been saying here, Lindsay, and what you've been sharing with us, right? I think even how you started and how our listeners should start. What's the goal? What is it that you want people to do? Start there, understand the reason why you're sending that email. Then you'll know how you'll want to measure success, again, beyond those opens and clicks. And then you can start to take a look at what worked, maybe what didn't work, and then come up with ideas for things that you may adjust in the future. Lindsay, I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us here today and sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Be a Marketer podcast. Please take a moment to leave us a review. Just go to ratethispodcast.com/BAM. Your honest feedback will help other small business marketers like yourself find the show. That's ratethispodcast.com/BAM. Well, friend, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and continued success to you and your business.